What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and we are bringing you a lot of new content. If you notice in the background, you'll see that there's not many cars that you've seen before on the channel. So today we're going to be starting on a project that's going to be a little bit quicker. This is going to take us a few days to iron out a fresh build that somebody else put together. JC came to us, wanted this thing ironed out. It's actually a really cool build. It's a tribute to his brother, and let's get started, show you guys what we're going to be working on this thing while it's here. Alright, so we might as well start with a little bit of a background on this car real fast. Unfortunately, JC's brother died in a car accident driving his Foxbody, so JC decided to build one in memory of him. So it's a cool build, we respect that. And it's pretty sweet. I mean, I like the setup overall. It is 5-lug swapped. It's an 86 GT with a 408, naturally aspirated for now. Made crazy power, maybe like 630 or 640 horsepower at the flywheel. Long tube headers, full 3-inch exhaust, Borla Pro XS mufflers like we have on the red car. It has a face-plated TKO, which is leaking like a sieve all over everything. So that's one of the issues it's here for. You know, electric fans, kind of some standard stuff. It still has AC and power steering, which is cool, but it has twisted wedge 205 11R. Full maximum front suspension, so it's got a Maximum Motorsports K member. And then in the back it has a bunch of UPR solid stuff. So it has the solid Heim joint, bushings, has the solid upper and lower control arms, and it has QA1 adjustable coilovers along with double adjustable front coilovers. So overall, it's a really sweet setup. It's fun to drive. Now, he doesn't particularly care for the faceplated transmission, and after driving it about 20 miles over the last couple days, or mainly just yesterday, I like it. But we'll bring you guys like a whole separate video once this is done on driving it, because it's extremely interesting. If you're not sure what a faceplated transmission is, it means that the synchros have been removed for like 6 or 7 big teeth. And there's no clutch material in between your gear changes to help you slip into the next gear. So it's really like banging it in, or you can double clutch it, or you can shift it without a clutch. But what it does do, it gives you the benefit of being able to shift it at high RPM super fast. That'll be the transmission style that we're gonna be putting in the notch. Is a faceplated style. Now, so it's fun, but the trade-off is that it's not very streetable, and especially if you want something smooth. JC has never owned a Foxbody Mustang or a V8 or build of any kind like this. So going from, you know, some European sports cars to a faceplated TKO, well, those of you who do know that is a crazy transition. So he hates it. So we're gonna be trying to find a replacement for him. For now, we're gonna have to take this one out and fix the leaks, put it back in until he finds one. He's preferably looking for someone who wants to trade. So if anybody on the channel has a TKO 5 or 600, you'd like to exchange for a faceplated 4-speed version, please let us know. Comment on the video down below, or get in touch with us by other means. We are going to start by making sure that the K member is square in the car. Looking at the fender to tire, it kind of gives us the red flag that it's off one way, but I also feel like this is kind of moved over, you know, the whole doghouse. So when it was on the ground, it looks like the K member needs to go towards the driver's side, if I recall correctly. So we're going to, you know, drop some plumb bobs, make sure that's square. Then once we know the K member's square, we will loosen the engine and transmission to make sure that those are nestled where they like to be. We will then drop plumb bobs off the K member and come to the rear suspension. Make sure this is square and set pinion angle on it. So we'll remove the drive shaft, put it on the wood blocks, roughly with the ride height. We'll probably end up raising the rear ride height a little bit. It sits a little low. And then make sure that the pinion angle is correct. So I don't know if there's a vibration in the drive shaft because it has a vibration and the drive line. So a combination of the pinion angle and the drive shaft is usually where that's found. So we really just want to button up the bottom end, make sure everything's adjusted properly, everything's tight, do a once over on it. It's only got 500 miles on it. And then once we're done down here with the suspension, we're going to move on to the transmission, pull that, seal that up, and then we'll move on to the engine bay as well, which you guys will see later. That needs a couple oil leaks fixed. But it's pretty cool. I like it. So that's going to be the primary focus of today's video. You guys have seen the Stingray lurking in the back and the Pantera. These are two freaking awesome classics that we have. The Corvette, just real quick, is going to be getting an EFI, tires, and a huge trans swap, which is a big project. And then the Pantera is here because it has a bad cylinder head, or a bad intake valve on one head. It did not pass a leak down test. So it's kind of just here to get the top end freshened up a little bit, and then that'll be out of here. But we will bring you guys, obviously, a lot of content on these two, mostly on the Vet. But they'll be in the background this whole video. We're not going to really talk much about them. So anyway, let's get to work. All right, guys. So we have we're working on JC's Fox, and a couple things that we've noticed so far. One, we dropped the lower control arms out because a common thing with the aftermarket control arms is that they were supposed to be set up for 1/2-inch hardware, and then they use the 12mm hardware that's factory. UPR is typically 12mm factory hardware, so we just want to make sure that that was the case, and it is. All the lower control arm and upper control arm bolts were semi-loose. Semi-loose meaning they're probably like 50 foot-pounds or so. For solid stuff, we crank them down because they make a lot of noise, so we want to make sure we make them as tight as possible. So we got some out of that. So that was it for the lower control arms. We made sure that they were equal length, so when we go to square the rear end, which we're going to do here shortly, we know that the lowers are at least starting from an equal point. Same with the uppers, although the rear end does seem to be fairly square. We have the plumb bobs dropped off the Maximum Motorsports K-member up there, and we've already marked our rear locations from the control arm bolts that we typically do. So this is our standard operating procedure to make sure the K-member square, and that's what we're doing next. All right, so we did this K-member squaring situation. Our suspicion was that it was poking out on the driver's side, and ding, ding, ding. So you figure this out by measuring across. You should go forward and backwards and then across. But when you have a left and right centering issue, the crisscross is what's going to tell you. So right now, this measurement, this dimension this way, is 1/4 inch longer than this way. So Maximum Motorsports wants it within a 1/16 of an inch. That means that this needs to come closer. So that means that the K-member's got to go towards the passenger side of the vehicle. So Dan's loosening the motor mounts. We're going to prop the motor up a little bit with the screw jack to kind of take the weight off the K-member. And then we could break the K-member loose and push it over. It's probably got to move over almost a whole 1/4 of an inch, because just because you move it directly doesn't mean that this measurement changes the same. So you almost got to move it more in order to get this to close up. All right, great success so far. We got the K-member squared in the car. It was about a 1/2 inch over towards the driver's side. So we got that moved over, squared up perfectly. We were about a 32nd of an inch off side to side. Maximum Motorsports wants it within a 1/16 of an inch, so that's perfect. Then we also raised the driver's side of the engine up as much as we could because it was down on one side, and that was causing the header to hit on the K-member. So we actually dented that in more. Somebody else tried to previously do it, it didn't work. So we got it perfect on the corner. So we were able to make some clearance there. It was also hitting on the oil pan, which it's very close, but now that we moved everything, it does not touch like it was before. So it's all about eliminating those little small nuances that create drivability problems or annoyance. So next we're going to put it down on its weight on the wooden blocks that you guys have seen us do a million times, and make sure that the rear end is square, and check pinion angle at ride height. And then that will wrap up kind of the suspension settings aside from ride height, 100%, and corner balancing, which will come shortly after. All right, what's up guys? Dan and I just got back from driving the faceplated 86 GT, and it's still a lot of fun to drive, but some of the changes that we made, you guys saw, were obviously squaring the front and rear suspension, setting the driveline angles better, which required us to actually raise the transmission in the back and raise the pinion angle so we can get opposite equal driveline angles, and that lessened the driveline vibration immensely. Unfortunately, after now being able to kind of feel the car even more, now that things are starting to smooth out, the majority of the vibration is in the engine. JC's not going to like to hear that because this thing's got 500 miles on it. But it's got no blow-by, and it's all really nice. But at a certain RPM, you can really feel it. And if you're driving, I think that's creating a harmonic through the whole drive line. You can feel it in neutral at the same RPM, and then when you're driving it, it creates a vibration throughout the whole car. Which really, really stinks. I mean, if you get it going to that RPM in second or third or fourth gear, and then you just stick the clutch and let the engine come down, it goes away completely and it coasts awesome. So I'm happy with the driveline angles. I'm probably not going to get the drive shaft balanced like I was originally anticipating because it fits good and it drives good.
You might, like I said, we might do it for a peace of mind, just to at least solidify that we know it's the motor. But like Nick was saying, as of now, it seems like it's, yeah, like that's sad to say, but it really seems like it's RPM dependent. So that would almost lead to some imbalance in the motor.
Yeah. So that might be a winter project. I mean, I don't think it's gonna rattle the car apart or cause the engine, like premature engine failure. The only thing that would suck is if you held it at that vibrate, because if you go a little bit faster, it goes away like 60-70%, and you go a little bit slower, it's almost completely gone. So it's like only in this one little window of RPM. And I would say if you stayed out of that, it wouldn't be a problem. Obviously, if you drove across the country at that vibration, shit's gonna rattle loose.
Yeah, I think in terms of this transmission and car setup, it needs a trans swap if he's not gonna mess with the engine during the imbalance, because in fourth gear, probably at a cruising speed, you're gonna be right in
there.
that vibration range.
It's probably like 25-2600. The tach doesn't work. We're gonna work on that, but it's
if
probably
you're
like 25-2600 RPM.
Like normal cruising, like around town, you're not really gonna be there.
Right.
But once you're trying to cruise, like we have felt that we were just on like a 50-mile-per-hour highway zone area.
So that really sucks.
So
that sucks for us. It sucks for JC because we can't fix it for him. He's not going to get it back perfect like we would like to give it to him and like he would like to receive it, because that's obviously a huge project. But we will get everything else fixed so he can drive it this year.
Can't fix it for him at this given moment.
Yeah, we can't fix it at this moment. We will fix it. It will be fixed, but just not right now.
That was what he wants to do currently.
Yeah. So the rest of this video, that's it for tonight. Tomorrow we'll come back. It'll be fun. We're going to do like some small stuff. We'll show you guys how to change the steering wheel in a Fox body. We're gonna put a nice Grant suede wheel in it. Pretty excited. It's gonna be nice. We're gonna be pulling the transmission out of it to seal that up, so for the time being it doesn't leak. And we're gonna pull the lower intake manifold off and seal that up because it's leaking fore and aft. And then that'll probably be just about it on this thing.
Maybe bump the right height.
Oh, and then we're probably still gonna we're still gonna corner balance it and bump the ride height up in the back. We did start to raise the rear ride height, and it's getting closer, but
well, there's no one in it and no gas. It seems like it's this level.
Yeah, right.
As you add people to it, that's what we're thinking.
Yeah, so we probably want to raise the back up about another ½ inch. The problem is I think the springs are really soft. I think it should have a 125 spring at least. It's got 110s in it, which would be like almost like not a gutted notchback, but you know, not a non-heavy notchback. Would want like a 110. The 125 is more common. If it was a 10-inch 110, it would clear the axle better instead of the 12-inch one, or a 10-inch 125 instead of the 12-inch 110. All right, so anyway, we'll get back to you guys tomorrow. We'll show you like a wrap up on the video, obviously on the car. We'll show you the inside. It's actually a really nice car. You know, the paint is like a 7 out of 10, which is like perfect because when you wash it, it looks good, but you're also not scared to park it somewhere. So I kind of like that about it. The interior is like flawless. And it's really fun to drive. I mean, a lot of people would say they don't like the faceplate stuff on the street, JC, the owner included, but I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I could see you getting in a lot of trouble once you get used to driving it smoothly and then obviously driving it aggressive. But we still got to fix some major oil leaks with it, and that's pretty much going to wrap up this build, and you guys will see that all coming tomorrow.
So as we were saying, we were going to be putting this Grant steering wheel on here. Alcantara thing with this button. Looks pretty nice actually. So getting this one off, literally all you have to do for 79 to, what is this, 88 maybe, you push in, turn counterclockwise, and it pops right out. Obviously typically there's wires attached to this right here and here for the horn. I already took this off, but going back to show you exactly what you got to do to get to the center bolt there, to which I already zipped off as well. So we're gonna get a puller, pull the steering wheel off, put the new hub on like so, wire in the horn for this through there, obviously attached to that, and that'll wrap up the new steering wheel upgrade. So we'll update you here shortly. Nicholas is pulling the intake off as well while I'm doing this. Gotta tackle it all at once. And then we gotta pull the trans and see what we find in that. Hopefully it's nothing too bad. Worst case is gonna be a cracked trans case, which is what we're hoping it's not. got the steering wheel all done, complete. Looks real nice. Everything still works. Tilt, obviously. Horn works, there's no battery on it, but everything's good with that. It cancels the turn signals, like so. Other way. Boom. All looks good. Like I said, tilt. Got the cover on it. Everything looks nice and OEM. JC's gonna like this one. Feels good. I got gloves on, I can't really tell for sure, but it still feels nice in the hands. A little thin, but for my liking. But it still feels good. I feel like my steering wheel is extremely thick. But yeah. So, got the steering wheel on. Now we're gonna move back underneath the car and get the trans out of here.
What's up guys, we're back working on the 86 and this is a face-plated 4-speed from Liberty Gears. And it does have some kind of engine vibration. It had driveline vibration. We got rid of most of that. It leaks like crazy, and now that we have the trans out of the car, we see where it's coming from. So this whole thing is all loose. This actually sets the preload on the whole bearing assembly also, so that could be a cause of our vibration. And then this is, I mean, these bolts are hand tight on these top two, and the bottom ones aren't too far behind. So this whole thing was coming apart on the front. And I couldn't explain why it was leaking so bad, aside from this exact scenario or a crack in the case. So I'm happy to see that this is the case, because this is just coming apart. Reseal it, bolt it back together.
Give it a test.
Try that out. Looks like it's leaking from maybe up here too, which is pretty common because they get bent from taking them off. So I'll probably take off this plate. This one looks dry all the way around, so we won't worry about that one. But I think the majority of our leak is gonna come from this one, and a lot of it is from this.
Right.
Maybe the shifter too. So we'll probably reseal these two and this front. I do not think this middle one is gonna be an issue. And that's good for us, it's less work, and for JC, because it's less work. So we'll worry about sealing everything else up and get this thing back together. Crazy though.
Yeah.
Well, we have good news and bad news. Let's start with the bad news. You guys saw that the input shaft, or the throwout bearing retainer, was wiggling around on here. Now either that caused what we're about to see, or it was a problem before, and that's what caused it to loosen up and turn into what it was. But all these holes, 3 out of the 4 are stripped out. They're smooth on the inside, and there's a helicoil in this one. Then, upon further inspection, the transmission case is cracked. You guys can see that all the way up to that bolt boss into the bearing. Same on this bottom opposite side, cracked all the way down. So this case is junk. It's unfortunate. So we called D&D Transmission. They saved us on the 99 Cobra T56 input shaft retainer. I don't know if you guys remember that in a previous video, but they're like the only ones who had one in the whole country. It was the last one, and they saved it. They got it to us next day. Now we have they were the only ones that we found with a TKO case that had one on the shelf, and they're gonna next day that as well. Unfortunately, it's kind of late in today, so we're not gonna see it till Thursday, but that still means that this car will be back on the road by the weekend. But now I have to transfer all the guts out of this trans into that one, which is kind of a lot of work. So you guys will see that, and that means that in in the next video, because we're gonna end this one, you will see the internals of a faceplated transmission and how the inner workings of them are. So stay tuned for that. The good news is we got the intake gaskets. We're starting to put the intake back on this thing. We're gonna start lining it with black RTV, front and back, like they did poorly. The intake is clean, ready. This is clean and ready. And we're gonna have this thing back together hopefully inside an hour. We're finally making some good progress. Not that, I shouldn't say finally, we're making good progress on this car regardless. We just got a little setback with the transmission. We weren't expecting that. We were hoping this car was gonna be running and driving kind of done today. But the intake manifold is back on. I'm out of breath. I just tightened all the manifold bolts 100 times to make sure they're all equal and tight. Just retightened all the header bolts. It did have a couple of small, very minor exhaust leaks, nothing crazy. I hope they sealed back up by retightening. I did get a lot on every single bolt, so hopefully they go away. If not, it'll have to come back probably towards the end of the year and get the headers removed, and we like to use like a copper RTV on them. That more than likely will hold the bolt in better and seal better because it doesn't expand and contract like a gasket does, causing the bolts to loosen up. So it is always a good idea to check your header bolts all the time before you do have to go to the lengths of redoing them, because with a 351 and a Fox body, if you've done it before, you know it's not easy. So that's all good. The intake manifold's all tight. That's ready to go. And I'm gonna start putting little stuff on, put the fuel lines back on, run some of the wires back to how they were. I'm gonna change a couple small things, but I'm not gonna get too wrapped up in major changes because it did run good and it did look halfway decent, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel and spend a bunch of his money on us changing a lot of stuff. So anyway, that's what it looks like now. I'll show you guys when it's finished. It's all just small, tedious stuff right now. All right, I think the last update, we were working on getting the intake back together. Now she is complete. She is all done, ready for a new transmission, or a repair transmission in this case. But everything is all hooked up. The last thing we gotta do is run it and sync the timing, make sure the timing is accurate. But otherwise, she's ready to fly. We tightened up all the exhaust manifold bolts. We redid the intake. We obviously drained all the coolant, which looked nasty, so that's gonna be all replaced tomorrow. Resealed the intake manifolds, went over every nut and bolt underneath here that was needed addressing. Of course, we already squared the K member. You guys saw that all already. But for the most part, that was today's project, was get the intake manifold off, put it back on, fix a little bit of some wiring. You know, we put a weather pack on some stuff instead of some spade terminals. Does need some help in the wiring department, but I think we're going to be switching this thing to Holly. And when we do that, we'll obviously make the engine bay look awesome. Alright guys, so that wraps up this video on the 86. That was the bulk of the work. You guys saw the transmission broke, so we're waiting on a case for that. We'll update you guys and show you what a faceplated transmission looks like, how it works. It's pretty badass. It's a little bit difficult to learn how to drive smoothly, but once you get over that learning curve, it's freaking sweet. So in the next episode, we'll show you guys how it works, what it looks like, and take you for a ride in the 86 and show you how well it does. So thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe down below. We'll see you guys in the next video.
Damn! Sounds great coming at you.